Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Kevin Connors for another episode of Connors Clinic Live, and we have a very special guest, just a wonderful colleague who I see eye to eye on in so many ways. She actually interviewed me on her podcast a couple of years ago, and now, I hate to say finally, but we are finally getting around to repay that favor. It's Dr. V. Dr. V is a Canadian breast cancer survivor. I'm sure all our patients have heard about her because we have heavily promoted the podcast that I was on hers. And she is the author of Heal Breast Cancer Naturally, which is a #1 Amazon bestseller in 10 categories in 5 different countries. Huge book. We recommend it to all our breast cancer patients and even just regular other people with other cancers because it just is so beneficial. She's the founder of Breast Cancer Conqueror. That's what most people know her for. And the 7 Essentials system that she developed. She's co-founder of My Breast Friend. So that is another trademark issue that she has. Her signature process has empowered thousands, literally thousands and thousands of women over 56 countries around the world to help them make the best choices with cancer. So Dr. V, welcome. Appreciate you. Just appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me and sharing my message of hope with your community.
It's always encouraging to speak to doctors who have ventured into the realm of helping people naturally and becoming more public. I speak to colleagues that think I'm crazy for doing podcasts like this and writing books and having a website with lots of information that we give away on because it sets us up as a target. And maybe it does. But I believe, like you do, that God has us on a mission and we're here for greater purposes than self-preservation. So why don't you kind of give us your story on what brought you down this pathway to get people understanding some foundational truths about Dr. V.
So I'm a chiropractor by profession, and it was 1983. I was in practice for 3 years, so just a little fledgling. And my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and you know how it goes with traditional medicine, right? Gave him no hope. 6 weeks to live, and he bought it to the day. I mean, he died a horrible death, and 6 weeks later. But throughout that whole period, I knew the body's ability to heal, and I knew, given the right resources, that potentially the body could heal. Now, of course, his was advanced, so maybe it would not have made a difference, but I think it would have made a difference in the quality of his life. And so I, started researching. 1983, no internet back then. So I, went to the library, called some cancer clinics, which were few and far between back then. And I realized, there were things that could be done for people with cancer. So I started applying these principles in my practice, and one thing led to another. I mean, I was seeing people from literally different countries and, just a lot of people from all over the place because of the results we were getting. And, fast forward about, 10, 11 years later, I'm in the shower, I'm getting ready to get ready for work, and I feel this lump in my breast. And right away I knew, it was that innate gut feeling. I knew it wasn't just a typical benign cyst. And so that started my journey with breast cancer. And I really was shocked because I was, Dr. V, the wellness warrior, helping all these people get well. And yet here I was facing this, breast cancer in my breast. So I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, I know what cancer is and what cancer is not. And I had to ask myself, what did I do that allowed the cancer to develop and show up in my body? And so that's when I, started looking at different options and how I would really improve my immune system, improve my health, and do things to weaken the cancer. And so from 2004 through 2006, that's what I did. I really worked heavily, did a lot of research, and There were times that I was frustrated and confused, just like any other woman would be, right? With breast cancer, there were some fears sometimes in the back of my mind, but I just kept pushing forward. And then I felt like I had this download about the 7 essentials because I was jumping all over the place. I didn't feel like I had a structured process. So that's when I created the 7 essentials, a step-by-step guide that if you follow, you never have to fear cancer or any dis-ease again. And so that first journey was very successful. It was quite simple. Didn't take too long. It only took a couple of years. But then fast forward to 2015, and by then, I'd sold my practice. I was now known as the breast cancer conqueror, helping women from all over the world. Again, wellness warrior, working from sun up to sundown. And I did not manage my health very well, and it caught up with me. And I felt another lump, same place, same area. And I knew that there was something going on in my body. I was tired, I was stressed, I wasn't sleeping well, my hormones were off. I ended up finding out I had cavitations or infections in my mouth, and I created the perfect storm for cancer to show up again. So this time, there was a lot more available to me as far as research, and we had learned so much from 2006 to 2015, 9 years in the cancer world, a lot more information. And so I, did all kinds of testing. I did high dose vitamin C, all different kinds of supplements, nutrients, and it took me 3 years. But since 2018, I've been happier and healthier than I've ever been.
Well, that's a huge praise God right there. I do want to ask you about your 7 essentials, but before that, there was something that you said that perked my ear a little bit. When you first were diagnosed with cancer your first time, you asked yourself the question, I don't know if I can phrase it exactly the way you said it, but what did I do that may have led to this diagnosis? Do you see a big difference between a person being diagnosed with cancer and not taking responsibility for it? Maybe just saying, why did I get this? Instead of asking the honest question, why did I get this? What did I do that participated in this? Is there a difference between being a victim and being taking responsibility for it?
Totally. There's the patients or clients that say, oh, why me, poor me. And there's the patients that say, okay, this is showing up in my life for a reason. So how did I live my life that allowed this cancer to show up, and why is it showing up? So they approach it with curiosity, and they approach it with a sense of responsibility, which is a totally different attitude about your healing. And of course, as you've seen, I'm sure, the victim versus the victor, there's a huge difference in the outcome as far as their mortality is concerned.
Yeah. I had a patient ask me just yesterday. She said, can you explain to me when you say, they must have said it in a video, that you have to get to the point of being thank God for your cancer. I don't understand that, because she thinks, she said cancer is an evil thing. And it's like, well, yeah, it is, but there's still things that you can shape your life and can change you, and God can use this to his glory if you allow that. No matter, bad things happen all the time, and it's how we look at them and how we say, okay, how can God be glorified in this, kind of as a Christian? And it's just a different way of looking at it that I think is healthier, and you're not taking that victim mentality.
Yes. So we teach our clients to always ask the question, what is the gift?
Yeah.
Because it's not just getting rid of the lump or the bump, but it's about the transformation that you're going to go through if you choose to come out on the other side a happier and healthier person.
Yeah. Now let's jump into these 7 essentials, these that you had downloaded to you that are so important, and I just love them. If you want to walk us through that would be great.
Okay, then feel free to jump in or interject anytime. So, Essential number one is let food be your medicine. And I think nutrition is definitely at the front of everybody's mind. You know, there's so much information now about eating well and organic. And now we know about food and how it affects our genes. So there's so many amazing things that can happen when we choose the right foods. And there's no one size fits all when it comes to diet. It really depends on your genetics, on the health of your gut. There's just so many factors. So people ask me, well, what's the perfect way to eat? Well, generally speaking, as a big overview, I would say, 80% raw, make sure it's organic, lots of greens, lots of veggies. If you choose to eat protein, make sure that it's clean, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, all of that. Nuts and seeds, just make sure that you're getting a lot of trace minerals in your food as well.
Yeah, we talk, we test, with kinesiology, we test for cause on patients, and it's just how it's changed over the last 20 years with patients. The most common cause in our testing for cancer is pesticides, herbicides, chemicals from our food sources. And it's even in people that say, well, I've been eating organic for 10 years. There's so much cross-contamination. We are just being poisoned. Yeah, at least here in America we are. I don't know how bad it is in Canada, but it's just awful.
Yeah, it is. And that brings us right into essential number two, the toxicity. Reduce your toxic exposure. We can't live in a bubble, but there's things that you can do to actively reduce that exposure. So as we mentioned, organic as much as you can. Look at what you have in your home. There's hundreds of chemicals that will promote breast cancer. If you're not careful with the cleaners and the sprays and the artificial candles and all of those things. Look at what you're putting on your skin, because again, all these chemicals, so many of them are what we call xenoestrogens, or chemical estrogens that will mimic and stimulate estrogen in the body. So just, start with one thing at a time. Get rid of the shaving cream for your legs and just use plain soap. Use clean toothpaste, use clean cosmetics, clean things to, clean your home. And that makes a huge dent in that toxicity level. And then take active steps to detox your body on a regular basis. So we're strong advocates of coffee enemas, colonic irrigations, liver cleanses, parasite cleanses, saunas, sweating, make sure that you sweat, lymphatic drainage, lymphatic massage, all of that is so important to get those toxins out of your body.
Yeah, that's great. That's so essential, isn't it? No matter how well you do. I mean, and like you said, just start making some wise decisions. You have to buy product anyhow. Just make some better choices. So,
and it's so easy now compared to what it was 20 years ago.
Yes,
I mean, I used to have to make my stuff back then, and now it's just go to the local grocery store and you have it.
Right. That's right. Okay, so point number three.
Number three is to balance your energy. So we're 1 billionth physical matter, right? The rest is all energy. So how do we keep that energy balanced? Chiropractic care is going to keep your nerve system balanced. Acupuncture, exercise, you have to move your body. Proper sleep. If we don't get restorative sleep, then you're turning on cancer-promoting genes. You're not detoxifying properly. You're weakening your immune system. And then the biggest thing for me with number three is hormones. Traditional medicine has really vilified women's hormones and made them afraid that if they have an estrogen positive cancer, oh no, we have to shut down your hormones. But our hormones don't cause cancer. We look at every 20-year-old on the planet who's raging hormones. They're fine, they're healthy. And we need our hormones for brain health and gut health and heart health and bone health, all those things. And if we shut down those hormones with toxic drugs, then it opens up the way to create, more cancers and more dis-ease in the body. So I always teach our women, first of all, find out what your hormone levels are through saliva testing. Find out if you have a problem with methylation or metabolism of your hormones, because if you do and you're not breaking down your hormones properly, then there's a possibility that those excessive estrogens could trigger cancer. And, test to see, where you are as far as that methylation, and reduce your toxic exposure to things that stimulate estrogen, like the chemicals you put on your skin and the sunscreens and the phthalates and the plastics, even the metals in your mouth, which we'll talk about. Those are known as xenometallogens, or, estrogens. They stimulate estrogen production when you're exposed to them.
Yeah, that's where you get into the pesticides and herbicides again, or even, and they're xenoestrogen-like,
Right?
and horrible for hormone positive breast cancers. Yeah, that is a challenge, because that's the biggest question that we get with breast cancer patients, women that are pushed so hard by the medical profession to do the medical aromatase inhibitors that will just literally shut down all their hormones, and everybody hates it. They all hate what it makes them feel like.
Yeah.
It's just chemically just puts them into a chemical slurry of dysregulation of all hormone function. It's just horrible.
Right. And they can, if they're afraid of that whole estrogen story, then do things that can help support balancing those estrogens, like flax or fermented soy, or DIM and calcium D-glucarate, all these things that could really help manage those hormone levels in your body properly.
Right. I always tell them there's ways to help pull out those quote unquote bad estrogens without eliminating all your estrogen and progesterone that is so essential for everything else.
Totally.
Now you talked about, we're really getting into it in point number 4, so I'll let you jump into that.
Okay, number 4 is to heal the emotional wounds. And we kind of alluded to that at the beginning of the podcast, victim, victor, but really understanding what's going on in your heart and your soul is so important when it comes to healing. It means, learning to love yourself, to really create healthy relationships, create healthy boundaries, nurture that little girl inside of you, make sure that she feels safe, and to forgive yourself, forgive others, let go of things in the past, and to really dive into that emotional aspect of your life. Because let's face it, even if we had the best childhood, there's still different aspects of our life, whether it was teenager, young adult, we had challenges in our life. And if we just stuff them and suppress them, then that energy, that emotional energy is still lingering, because that memory is stored up in our cells. And Candace Pert, she was way ahead of her time in the 80s. She wrote the book Molecules of Emotions. And, she said, mind becomes body, because every thought you think creates those proteins that talks to every single cell in your body. Dr. Joe Dispenza, you are the placebo. Your mind has such a powerful message to your cells, good or bad, whatever you choose. So really, looking at the power of the mind, the power of your belief, because I'm sure you've seen this, patients who vacillate and say, well, I think I can heal, I'm not sure, and I hope this works, versus this is going to work and I'm going to heal and I'm going to be happy and healthy at the end of this journey. Makes a huge difference in their response.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that is maybe one of the key things, right? Maybe that's we should maybe say that one of the more difficult things to go through. You can make the physical changes of, I'm going to get rid of all toxic substances in my house, toxic shampoos and such. But when you have to deal with some inner wounds, you have, that's a little bit harder. So that's one that everybody wants to skip.
Yes. And if I were to start over, I think I'd put that one at number 1, because I've seen women who traveled the world, done everything, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their treatments, but they never addressed, what was between here and here. They didn't make it.
Yeah, we see that time and again too. The more difficult cases are the ones that have just an anxiety that is just relentless. And
yeah.
yeah. All right. Number five. This is the one that you
Five.
really kind of learned this on your second journey, right?
Yes, I did. I had done some work before on removing the metals in my mouth, but number five, to embrace biological dentistry, it means to really take a look at chemically what's going on in your mouth and then energetically. So if we start with chemically, if we look at metal fillings, we know those are 50% mercury, and that's one of the most toxic elements on the planet, and it's going to cause all kinds of neurodegenerative issues and suppress your immune system. It's also metalloestrogen, right? Stimulates estrogen. So we want to make sure that we remove those metals from our mouth properly by using, biological dentists that are certified in the SMART technique, or they're certified by, there's different biological organizations, but make sure they're certified. And then there's the root canals, right? Root canals are basically dead tooth. It's a dead appendix or a dead gallbladder. It's the same thing, full of, anaerobic bacteria, no matter how aseptic you try to make it. And that can drip toxins into your body. But recently, though, interesting, talking about root canals, I discovered something called regenerative endodontics, where they are actually removing, they take that root canal and they remove the binders and everything that they had in there that are toxic, flush it out with frequencies and sound, make it aseptic, and then they put in a bioceramic material that is non-toxic. And it fills all the little crevices and it works really well. I had a client who went to LA to have that done. It was amazing. When she pulled out that thing from the old root canal, it was all black and full of mold and bacteria. It's pretty fascinating. So
that's something new.
yeah,
That's great.
it was for me. Yeah, it was for me, regenerative orthodontics. Then the endodontic. The next thing is looking at your mouth energetically. So your teeth are connected to your organs through the acupuncture meridian system. And if there's a hunk of metal or if there's a root canal, that can really affect that meridian. And there are specific meridians in the top and the bottom on the teeth that are connected to the breast meridians. And we see the connection all the time. Cavitation is another thing, right? A cavitation is an infection in the bone. After you've had a tooth pulled, if it wasn't cleaned out properly, it'll create an infection, literally eat away at the bone. Cavitation means hole in the bone. And that can cause some issues. And I found out in my case, so I had, cavitation up here on number 14, which is left breast meridian, one down here, I forget the number down there, 20 something, left breast meridian. So, there's always that connection. And we can see that on thermography too. If they have red spots or their mouth is all red, we know definitely you need to clean out that mouth.
Yeah, we do thermography. We see that all the time. Matter of fact, you could actually just see a tooth that it just run right down to that breast. It's just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to do to help get better, right?
That's right.
Okay, number 6.
Yeah. So this is all the therapeutic plants and herbs that people want to know about. What do I take to build my immune system up, to kill the cancer cells? And, there's a whole plethora. I mean, if you get the book, you'll see there's like over 700 references to all the different studies, that show which products work and why. So, basic things like vitamin D, just keep your vitamin D levels optimal between 80 and 100. That in itself will help you to prevent breast cancer, and it'll really ensure that you can heal properly. Make sure you have all your trace minerals like zinc, selenium, magnesium. Your vitamin A is also very important. Then, look at therapeutic plants like curcumin and wormwood, and there's, different formulations like poly-MVA and Oracel, which are basically different things that are designed to kill cancer cells. Even concentrations of blueberries can really help to, turn off those cancer promoting genes. Broccoli sprouts are very important. Sulforaphane, turns on over 200 genes. So there's a whole system that we use to help, support nutritionally and then to really target those cancer cells.
Yeah, how important is that? And we get an argument sometimes when I have a phone consult with a spouse that will say, well, if there's studies on this, why aren't the regular doctors using it? And it takes you literally 30 seconds to do a Google Scholar search on the curcumin or vitamin D, and you'll see 600 pages of studies,
Right.
and yet they're never read. It's and never acknowledged. It's kind of sad, actually.
And you can't patent these things, right?
No,
Because
so there's no money in it, right?
There's no money to be made. Yeah.
Okay, number 7.
Number 7, the last one. It's all about keeping a pulse on your health and really embracing early detection. And so we recommend a lot of tests outside of conventional medicine. When we think of early detection, what do we think of? Mammograms. I mean, the pink month is coming up, right? And so we teach women, you have a lot of other choices. If you choose to do a mammogram, know the consequences, the radiation, the compression, the problems it could cause, and then back it up with something else like an ultrasound. If you do thermography, thermography is a great tool. Does not give off radiation. It looks at the physiological changes in the tissue of the breast. Back that up with an ultrasound as well, because that's going to give you a different window to look at. And then there's, breast self-exam. So we talked about, you mentioned, my breast friend. So my breast friend was created originally through the Mamacare Foundation. And maybe you learned on a model similar to this on how to do a proper breast exam. So the Mamacare Foundation has taught thousands of doctors around the world for the last 30 years. And this is the model that they used. So they asked me to take this model to the general public. So women would now have access to this model. So we made it look pretty, put it in a pretty box. Comes with an instructional video, a little booklet, but it teaches you what to look for and what to feel. So you see these lumps here, and then how to feel and where to feel. So it's a whole system that really teaches women, the proper way of doing a breast exam. Because if you can find something, well, let me show you this picture here. The average size lump that a woman finds when she's not trained, properly trained, is the size of a ping pong ball. When she's properly trained, she can find something the size of a pea. So a huge difference.
Big difference there. Yeah.
That small and it hasn't spread. Your survival rate is 15 years over 88%. So, it's a big game changer if you can find it small. And then there's, all the blood tests that we recommend. Of course, your vitamin D levels, vitamin A, magnesium. Look at your inflammatory markers, because if there's lots of inflammation in the body, then chances are you're, producing cancer cells. And we use, different tests. I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with RGCC. I'm not sure if you use it or not, but RGCC, and there's other companies now that filter the blood and look at circulating tumor cells, because if they cut out the tumor, that's great, but there's still cancer floating around in your body, right? And you have to address that root cause. So it gives us these tools to be able to manage things more effectively.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we just appreciate all your work that you're doing. Anything current in your life that you're promoting?
Well, we always have, we used to have live retreats, but now we have virtual retreats. We just finished one of those. And actually in a couple of weeks, we're doing a small live retreat in Sarasota, where we rent a house on the beach and we bring women together, hang out for 4 days or so. We bring in IVs, different practitioners who do bioenergetic testing. We do meditation. We just eat well and just, hang out and share our journey. So we're doing one in a couple of weeks, and we'll do one again in the spring.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you are a ginormous encouragement to a lot of people, even those without breast cancer. So I just want to acknowledge you. We're going to have information about your website so patients can and listeners can get to that, see the tools that you have available, utilize your service. I just want to thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all that you do as well, Dr. Connors.
Again, thank you very much. Appreciate all our listeners on this episode of Connors Clinic Live. Dr. V, thank you again.